Hello, my name is Paul Marchbanks, and this is Digging in the Dirt, with another entry in a series on the films of Danish auteur Lars von Trier. Today, I'll be saying a few words about disability, art, and von Trier's background to prepare you for watching Melancholia, a film released in 2011. Who has the right to represent whom in front of the camera? This has become an incredibly charged question, upending thousands of years of precedent on the Western theatrical stage. All actors in ancient Greece were male, wearing different masks and costumes to indicate shifts in performed gender, codifying a practice of wearing drag on stage that only began to change well after the Renaissance, around the time Charles II was restored to the British throne in 1660. The convention of signaling a race other than the actor's own lasted even longer, painted faces eventually replacing painted masks, granting white actors more versatility and dramatically restricting professional opportunities for actors of color in the West well into the 20th century. As late as the early 1950s, Orson Welles was wearing blackface on both the stage and in front of the camera to play Shakespeare's Othello. Today, revelations that a politician once wore blackface for Halloween or a frat party can destroy a career. In recent years, audiences only allow this problematic practice when it's heavily satirized, as in John Landis's Trading Places or Ben Stiller's Tropic Thunder. The artistic counterfeiting of disability has proven even more tenacious, long providing actors the ultimate opportunity to demonstrate their chameleon-like malleability, performances which, throughout much of Hollywood's history, have won lots of attention during the Oscars. Patty Duke won for Best Supporting Actress playing Helen Keller. Daniel Day-Lewis earned Best Actor for playing someone with cerebral palsy. Jamie Foxx for playing Ray Charles, and Hilary Swank for playing a quadriplegic. In just the last few years, however, pushback has become so pronounced that studios have finally begun to actively seek actors with disabilities to play characters with disabilities. The hearing impairments of Marlee Matlin, Millicent Simmons, and Alaqua Cox have helped them earn the roles of deaf characters in recent years. Adam Morse's blind character on See deals with the same limitations as Morse himself, and Jordan Walker Ross, who plays a mobility-impaired disciple on The Chosen, has both scoliosis and minor cerebral palsy. What should a progressive, enlightened audience demand when it comes to portraying neurodivergence on screen? Will a director and her film crew be able to rely on someone with, say, a cognitive disability to effectively inhabit a particular role? Acting requires precision of delivery, social agility, and lots of patience. Profound mental differences can present nearly insurmountable obstacles when it comes to acting, and a number of individuals with mild cognitive disabilities also find the rigors of the profession to be overwhelming. This is not to deny the extraordinary abilities of savants or some individuals on the spectrum who can focus their attention on a given subject for extended, enviable periods of time, merely to recognize that the high-stress environment of a film production presents all sorts of potential difficulties. Fortunately, a number of actors with Down syndrome have found support structures enabling them to act on screen in recent years, but it's difficult to imagine roles like those required by the scripts of What's Eating Gilbert Grape or The Other Sister being played by someone who actually has the disability being dramatized. When it comes to profound cognitive differences created by genetic conditions or trauma to the brain, perhaps we should continue to make exceptions to the otherwise very noble push to ensure that disenfranchised populations represent themselves in film and TV. Otherwise, we might end up in a situation where certain kinds of embodied difference receive little to no representation whatsoever. Out of sight, out of mind. mental illness presents another creative quandary. Some actors boldly transform themselves physically to play demanding roles, and method actors famously disappear into their characters, altering their mannerisms, speech patterns, and gaits, even when no camera is rolling. The film Persona, created by a master director of both stage productions and feature films, suggests that the unique pressures of acting can actually fracture one's psyche in measurable, lasting ways, that it might sometimes create mental illness, an idea that has been borne out in the lives of plenty of actors who have followed. Kyle Richards was traumatized by watching her 8-year-old self in the first Halloween flick and ended up sleeping with her mother till she was 15 years old. Shelley Duvall reports wrestling with a variety of mental issues following her role in Stanley Kubrick's The Shining. Val Kilmer had to seek therapy after playing Jim Morrison in Oliver Stone's film The Doors, and Leonardo DiCaprio's mild OCD was exacerbated by playing Howard Hughes, who had severe OCD, in Martin Scorsese's The Aviator. A number of these roles were honored with accolades during awards season, but was it worth it? What should we be willing to sacrifice for art, and when is the cost too high? Is it ethical, for instance, to ask actors to represent their own deeply seated personal issues for others' entertainment? Should we instead seek those who haven't experienced a certain kind of difficulty to represent that difficulty in an effort to avoid triggering someone and resurrecting their issues? Or might reenacting one's mental illness in a controlled way for the screen sometimes prove therapeutic, granting actors an enviable opportunity to exorcise past suffering? Should art always benefit the artist in some way, providing a productive forum for working out pent-up emotions, tackling personal issues, or exploring from a new angle those social problems that impact one's own life? Danish filmmaker Lars von Trier has wrestled with such questions his entire career, trying to find some sustainable balance between personal sacrifice and artistic excellence, a balance often upended by mental health issues which began at a young age. Trier grew up in a middle-class family of civil servants who consistently encouraged him to pursue artistic expression. Sounds like good parenting to me. Tracy and I tried to do something similar with our kids, providing musical instruction in our home, paying for dance and gymnastics lessons, and hiring a private tutor for drawing and painting. Unfortunately, Lars' childhood played out in a way that tied art to anxiety. Unbeknownst to him, until he was in his mid-30s and his mother was on her deathbed, she had intentionally conceived Lars with an artistic lover, not her husband, in hopes of birthing an artistic child. In addition to providing him early access to an Elmo 8mm camera, which obviously had a very profound effect on the later filmmaker, she also applied a lot of pressure on him to become an artistic genius. One of the methods she and her husband ironically used involved granting Lars and his siblings as much freedom as possible to explore their own impulses in hopes of giving their creativity free rein. If he didn't want to go to the dentist, he could dodge an appointment without repercussions. He could skip school when he wanted to, spend his time as he liked, and behave as he wished without punishment. Instead of freeing him, however, this lack of structure apparently birthed incredible anxiety because he felt responsible for everything, from a flower he found that had been stepped on to a Cold War that could rain down radiation at any point. At age 6, he would curl up under the kitchen table for hours, afraid of an atom bomb dropping. His anxieties and the total latitude granted by his parents forced him to create an internal authority and develop incredible self-discipline early on. While this did give him an edge artistically, it also tormented him because he learned to rely solely on his own abilities. As an adult, Trier has demonstrated incredible productivity, writing, directing and serving as primary camera operator for a number of his films, but he's also wrestled with ongoing apprehension when not working. He considers his independence and creativity a kind of christening gift, but an unloving one, granted at too high a cost. Trier reflects, quote, "It's a lot for a little kid to decide for himself. I miss the love and authority that defines parameters can bring, because that is a form of love." Ongoing therapy has provided von Trier only intermittent relief over the decades, perhaps because traditional counseling focuses on the psychosocial dimensions of anxiety only. In 1998, he complained, "I sit there pouring out my woes year after year, coming up with one enormity after another about my mother and the way she let me down, but it doesn't make me any less fearful." Filmmaking has occasionally proven more than a stopgap measure for easing von Trier's anxiety. His screenplays also provide an arena for wrestling with the very issues that spawn his unease. Instead of tackling only the sociological and psychological difficulties that preoccupy many filmmakers, von Trier has consistently engaged these issues by reaching beyond them, seeking a spiritual stratum beneath what troubles him. Though his atheistic parents dismissed moral absolutes as fiction throughout his childhood, he later reached a different conclusion. In the late 90s, he noted that, quote, "Religion and the miracle have to a certain extent been present in my films from the start," an idea he echoes when discussing his first studio film, The Element of Crime. Quote, "I was brought up to believe that there was an explanation for everything. Absolutes, like good and evil, don't exist. Instead, there are things like mistakes and misunderstandings. Religion formed no part in my upbringing, and religion, of course, cherishes concepts like good and evil." Fisher, the anti-hero of The Element of Crime, represents the humanists who've often had central roles in my films, and everything keeps going wrong for them. Fisher is working from the assumption that good and evil don't exist, but they're there, all right, in strength. In Melancholia, Trier gets incredibly personal, injecting into the character of Justine the same debilitating depression which has at times made it difficult for him to function. He also inserts a few ongoing moral questions about the roots of human nature and our ultimate destiny. Is it productive to broadcast one's issues in such a public way, or does the veil provided by flipping gender, his depressed character is female, provide an adequate disguise? Or, to take a different tack, is it presumptuous of him to place his own disability issues within the mind and body of a female character? Was Trier right to hire an actor who had dealt extensively with depression of her own to play a character with depression? Was this forward thinking or too risky? Should he instead have swung the other direction and hired someone who was actually dealing with depression at the time of filming? Would this have granted even greater authenticity to the role, or constituted unforgivable exploitation? As it currently stands, does Melancholia contain needless, harrowing trauma that unnecessarily details the suffering of someone with a clinical disorder? Or might this piece of art, which provides a raw and honest portrait of depression, serve a useful, even cathartic function for some of its viewers? Ultimately, does the film leave us trapped in the downwards pull of someone's agonizing self-destructive spiral? Or does it point to a measure of hope to be found in working through disabling conditions, reconfiguring family relationships, and seriously reflecting on the possibility of a transcendent design organizing a mysterious universe? What do you think?